The In This League Podcast Network.
Oh, it's time to do some prospect digging, and I'm gonna have a digging partner, one of the best in the industry. He is Eric Cross. You can find him on Twitter at EricCross04. Catch him over on the Fantrax. Got a couple pods, a 5-tool pod, Fantrax Tool Shed, also featured in the Black Book. Me and him doing some of that business. Eric, are you ready to dig into prospects, and are you ready to get crazy here?
Oh man, I'm always ready to get crazy. You know that, and what better way to get crazy than digging in some prospects? That's the best way to get crazy, I think.
Well, I didn't mean to jump right into it because I obviously want to talk about your stuff. We'll talk about it at the end, the stuff you got going on. People know you, and people know the stuff. People, you double my audience size on Twitter, but you were getting crazy. You were ready to start up a frenzy. And I mean, frankly, my friend, you should have gotten the horde ratio come after you when I saw you quote tweet the prettiest swings in baseball. And you dared put Kelenic in the same breath as Griffey. What were you thinking? How did you not get banned from Twitter? What were you doing?
That was kind of serious, but mostly just kind of like people know that I'm like a huge Kelenic guy. So, and I do think he has one of the prettiest swings, left-handed swings in baseball. So that is true. But yeah, that was kind of like poking fun a little bit, putting him up there with Griffey, which is
you were just asking for it, buddy. You were asking for it.
It was fun. It was fun.
I mean, because Griffey has become like the pseudo side face of baseball. Like people want the logo to be changed. Baseballism's got their own line and stuff, and from the rafters, Eric comes out here and he's like, hey, by the way, not even like, I mean, it would have been the same thing. Like, it's ironic because they're both Mariners, legends and whatnot, but it's not even like, one of my favorite swing. It was like, no, what's the swing you think of? And it's Kelenic and Griffey. Though I do like the waggle that Kelenic has made a little bit more prominent. It seems like over the last couple of years, that waggle has become a little bit more. And what better way than to start this off? Because I know you've been pretty excited about it. I know it was coming. And really the big takeaway, the takeaway for me is that it's gone exactly how I thought this was going to go. Just exactly how I thought it was going to go. That he was going to show his struggles. Now, I'm not a mind reader. I don't know. I didn't know if it would happen on the back end or the front end. And in my brain, maybe I'm a little biased, or the recency bias to my brain. I'm thinking I thought it would happen to start, but I said either one is on the table, but I felt you were going to see an extended struggle from Jarred Kelenic. No one's immune to it. I think, my biggest argument with a guy like Wander Franco has always been that I think Franco is just a tier better of a hitter in how he makes contact and whatnot. Kelenic has some deficiencies. There'll be some strikeouts. There's going to be some swing and miss. I love the streakiness idea of him to a Harper, but here's the deal with Kelenic. Hits the ball damn hard, and he has been doing all of that the entire time. You saw it in his first 2 games, but the struggles are real. 157 batting average, 2 homers, just rocked his the other day, a stolen base as we're recording this, 8 hits and 51 at bats. So what do you think, my friend? How has the debut been for you? I know things got quiet. I don't know if people chirp yet. I mean, people chirping at 51 bats would be hilarious in any struggle because we know who this guy is. But talk to me about Kelenic and what this early debut looks like for you and how you're processing it.
Yeah, there have been a little bit of chirps lately, but not too much, which is good because it's still early. And I'm with you, man. I kind of thought there would be some struggles as well because there was so much hype around this promotion. When was it going to happen? People thought it would happen last year or mid-April after the service time, and everyone was just waiting on Kelenic. So that's a lot of pressure. But I think he's a guy that, like I said, he seems very driven. Like, I've obviously never talked to the guy, but he seems very driven, like all that chip on the shoulder mentality, the bulletin board material.
Totally.
Like he seems like he always finds that it's kind of like the Michael Jordan mentality. Like, you find reasons to, drive yourself. And I think he has that mentality. So I think he's going to be fine. I'm not worried at all about these struggles. Like, he's not even striking out that much right now. I think it's under 20% last time I looked.
Yeah, I'm taking a look here right now. 18%
Yeah,
strikeout rate, 60% walk rate. I mean, BABIP is under 200. I mean, obvious slugging. I mean, he's a 1-2-3 guy right now, which you want to be a 3-4-5 type of guy. But then that's like the unique thing that you're talking about that makes me like I have literally just nothing. There's nothing I take out of this. Nothing changes for me because I've always built in some of this stuff. The underlining worked great. Max EV just under 110 right now. He's got a 14 launch angle, barreling about 8% of the time, and 37% hard hit. Feels like 97% hard hit and how he's done it. A low strikeout rate. I mean, all of that's there. The results are just not there. And sometimes with guys, the results don't get there. But sometimes there are just players that there's a constant battle. That's why I said this a couple weeks ago, and I feel bad because I'm not the best with like comping one for one player. Sometimes I can do it great, and then sometimes I just miss it. But when I get it, I'm like, that's it. When whoever it was put the Harper one, I was like, oh, that's the one. That's the one that I love because Harper, when he wasn't hitting, he would make up for it with stealing bases. And then when he was a dominant hitter, you know, he didn't really need to because he was hitting 300. That's how I feel with Jarred Kelenic. I feel that though, I mean, he could stabilize and just be he could be a 300 hitter with 35, 40 homers, 20 plus stolen bases. You know, he could be that guy, but he could also be somewhere between 25 and 35 homers, somewhere between 15 and 25 stolen bases, and anywhere from a 250 to 300 batting average player, because I think there are some streaks that could exist in there. So I built all of this in, and the underlining stats to me, I have no changes whatsoever. But has anything changed for you? I know you're saying he'll be fine and blah, 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 but like, do you feel like, okay, maybe this I wasn't expecting or this has changed? You don't have to, by the way. The answer doesn't have to be yes, but has anything in the 51 at-bats, seeing him and seeing some of the struggles, set off anything in your brain?
No, not at all. Like he's had some good at-bats. Like you said, like hits haven't been falling. He's had some really good at-bats. Like I said, not striking out a lot. He had that really good game against Aaron Savali, which is funny because Aaron Savali's older brother Nick writes for us at Fantrax, and I was messaging him earlier that day when I saw that.
Is that his younger, older brother?
Yeah.
Which one did you say?
Aaron Savali, Nick Savali is his older brother.
Older. Okay. No, I totally know who that is. And I always had that thing where I was like, that's fun. I didn't actually know he was the older brother. That's fantastic. That's cool.
Yeah, it's fun. So we were chatting earlier that day when I realized, like, oh, hey, Kelenic second game here going up against Aaron Savali. So I messaged Nick and I was like, hey, wouldn't that be something if Kelenic got his first home run off your brother? He's like, yeah, man, that should be interesting. And then he did off that. I think it was off a splitter, if I recall right. So yeah, I like the at bats. His hits haven't been falling, but no, I haven't changed anything with Kelenic so far because I'm still pretty confident he's going to get it going here.
So I did ask. I think I put this on a tweet for the ITL baseball podcast, and I should actually go back and see what it finished at. But like, I think for us dynasty, for us long-term guys, I mean, really, especially if you want to be convicted in it, you shouldn't change your opinion off of 50 at bats. That would be like, you could have warning signs and stuff like that. And you could say, okay, this is, you know, maybe this is where we're going to go, blah, blah, blah. But you wouldn't want to change it. So like nothing really changes. So I feel like I don't need to ask you, long term, has anything changed in your Kelenic versus Wander Franco race? It's still Kelenic. That's still your guy. But we asked the question on the in season because I just was wondering where people were at. I wanted to gauge where people are at because Kelenic had been struggling. He was batting 173 when we did the episode on that would have been Tuesday or Monday. I'm sorry. We did the episode on Monday. And he was batting 173 or 137. I'm sorry. He's brought that up just a tiny bit, not much, 157. He did get another homer. And I wanted to pair it against a struggling Kelenic to we haven't seen Franco, if you assume Franco would come up soon. And it was still overwhelmingly in Kelnic's favor, which I'm not super surprised about. But I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm curious on your take rest of season, knowing that presumably Franco could come up any day, and you've got 50 at-bats of negative returns for the most part on Kelenic. Do you think that, I know you're going to still say Kelenic rest of season just for this year, but do you think the gap has closed with how Franco has approached AAA and the type of player he is versus how Kelenic has gone? Or do you think maybe the early struggles are just why Kelenic is going to be skyrocketing more valuable than Franco rest of this season?
Yeah, I still think it's gonna be Kelenic, but because I think with Wander, I don't have any reservations about him hitting for average right away. Like we've seen, the hit tool is elite. It's one of the best hit tools we've ever seen. So I think he'll hit for average right away. Maybe not like 320, but at least a good average. I don't think he'll struggle and hit have these like hitting 140 or whatever through 50 at bats. But I do question how the power looks. And yeah, he's had a few bombs this year at AAA. But those are kind of clustered together. It was all within like in a week he had those 3 or 4 home runs and hasn't really done much in the power department since then. So I got to wonder what type of production outside of average Wander's going to show this year. I think he'll still hit for some power and maybe steal a little bit, a few bags, but I think the production in the power speed department will be better for Kelenic this year, even if Wander has the higher average. So yeah, I think it'll all even out, but yeah, I still think Kelenic will have the bigger impact because, and again, like you mentioned, Wander could come up tomorrow, but he might not be up. They might screw with him. He might not be up until July. We don't know these with how the Rays operate, but yeah, I still lean Kelenic rest of this year.
Yeah, it's interesting debate to keep following through.
It is, yeah.
Since he hasn't hit a homer since May 15th, it's not like Wander's destroying AAA or anything like that either. He's meeting the expectation, I think, which is a key thing. He in the last 6 games, I was taking a look to see how far on it, because power is not the only tool, or I'm sorry, homers are not the only indicator of like power, future power.
Right.
And Franco is on a 3-game hit streak, and he had gone 4 straight games without an extra base hit. He actually went 4 straight games with only, I think, 1 hit, but then he hit a triple on the 23rd, a double on the 25th, picked up another stolen base. So he's starting to get there, but it's the never-ending debate. But I felt like it would have been just a misuse of having you on to not talk about Kelenic and see if there's anything there. I mean, you had that moment. I saw you got a shirt. I mean, did you announce your next child, whenever that might be, is going to be named Jarred Jr. or little Kelly, little for Kelenic, little Kelly, if you have a girl or something like that? I mean, how did you celebrate this is your guy. I mean, like when Julio comes up, I hope everybody respects me. You got Kelenic. I give you the respect. You went hard on Kelenic I'm still Julio over Kelenic, but like that was your day. That was Eric Cross day. Yeah. I expect the respect from everybody else when Julio is out for me to be showered with the attention and understand the important day for me. So how did you celebrate it?
Man, that was a fun day, and I had a connection in the Kelenic camp, and I was trying to be the one that broke that news, knowing that there was a very slim chance I could beat out, Jeff Passan and all the big wigs and getting that news broken.
That would have been the best thing for you. I mean, that would have been just your hat tip of hat tips.
I know. I was like with my contact like every day. I'm like, all right, anything new. But yeah, that was just a fun day. Even if he didn't, he had a very underwhelming debut and then kind of broke out that second game. But yeah, it's always fun when your guy comes up, and whether it's a superstar guy like Jarred Kelenic or maybe a lesser player that you just really like for whatever reason. It's always fun when you see these guys finally make it to the major leagues, and that was a fun day. But yeah.
So let's move over. There is a teammate that's involved in this, but this is a different subject. Top pitching prospects. A couple weeks back, I had said that I felt like that Logan Gilbert could be one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. Not that he's electric, but that he had one of the better combos across the board of just command and stuff and results. And it hasn't quite been there in his major league debut. 3 starts. They're not like the ERA and the whip just don't look great. I don't think there is overwhelmingly bad as it feels if you've seen the starts. Like he gets some innings under himself, he finds some control, but the control is not there at the major league level right now. Then on top of it, so that was a guy like I pseudo-Leah said, like, hey, this could be the guy. Alek Manoah, who was supposed to debut as we're recording this, got rained out. Theoretically, when people are listening to this, he may have made his debut. Phenomenal minor league, 18 innings, 27 strikeouts, a .5 whip, 3 wins, and all of his just huge jump to AAA, dominating, coming up, looking like he's going to be the guy. They're not necessarily the question here. The question is, who in your mind, because I feel like pitching has gone into such a weird space. James and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, where we're no longer in a place and maybe it's this year specifically, where there's a guy. There's not an overwhelming guy like there's been in the past where we've looked at. There's really a clump of, I think we talked 5 or 6 players, and you might be able to go 8 pitchers deep that you can't really argue about these. So I feel like if I got 10 different prospect people on, I might get 7 different answers with it, because I'm not necessarily nor did I ever really say that Logan is the best, but let's just give him to me for a second. Let's give Manoah to James. So I ask you, you don't have to have a different answer, but who do you think the best pitching prospect is, and who are you banking on right now in the minor leagues?
Man, that's a tough question. And it's funny you kind of worded it like that, 'cause I was just talking with Chris Clegg, my podcast co-host on Toolshed, about this, where like there is no number one guy right now. Like maybe it's still Mackenzie Gore, but he's dealt with his command and control issues this year and last year at the alt site. Matt Manning, who's a guy that I've been very high on. He's already given up like 9 home runs this year in 4 starts. Like Pearson's had his issues. Sixto's kind of gone MIA this year. There is just not one guy. And you could throw in, all the Seattle guys, Gilbert, George Kirby, Emerson Hancock, maybe Asa Lacy, I've heard some Max Meyer chatter as number one. There's just so many guys. And I think that just shows like how volatile pitching can be, where, sometimes these number one guys just don't work out, like Forrest Whitley, how his fall from grace over the last couple of years. Yeah, that was the guy
for a bit too. Yeah,
I mean, before Gore, that was the guy was Gore before Gore.
It changes the value. It completely changes, and that's a big thing that James and I talked about. My number one, I'll tell people, and it was like this even. So if you want to get who my real number one is, by the way, it's not Logan Gilbert. Even when I said he could be, I didn't make that move. I did move at that time Gilbert above Mackenzie Gore. I think this says a lot. You of all people, Eric, how defendy I have been about Mackenzie Gore. I'm not out, but he has moved. I have moved on from him being in that elite territory. He could still be in the conversation, but he is so messy right now. His mechanics look worse than I've ever seen. He's inconsistent with his mechanics in multiple starts I've seen. He gets that arm back off of the leg kick, and it goes further down sometimes. Sometimes it's up. When he doesn't go as far down, I see better command, which made me want to say, maybe they need to pitch him out of the stretch for a little bit to try to get some consistency, but he still finds inconsistency there. So McKenzie he's not even my top 3 starting pitchers. Sixto Sanchez has been my guy. He looked phenomenal last year. He was at the top of the list. He's dealing with an injury right now. I haven't moved off of him. He's the only pitcher I have near my top 20. He is number 1 to me. If I pinned you down and I said, pick one for your life, Eric, which is the guy that you actually pick in this? Because Sixto is my technical guy with Logan right there. Manoah is clearly James's guy. There is no wrong answer here. That's the big point here. But if you had to bank, you kind of said McKenzie. Are you going to go back to Matt Manning? Who do you go with?
In my rankings right now, number 1 pitching prospect for me is still Mackenzie Gore, but I got a gut feeling that when I rank again in a month or so, once the draft happens and was that second week of July, I'm gonna do my next update. I think it might be George Kirby, because the command, the bat missing ability, the stuff, like he just screams. I'm not making a comp here to Shane Bieber, but there's a lot of similarities when you look at just the great all-around arsenal, the pinpoint command and control. There's a lot to like here, and these are the guys that I'm trying to value more and more. These plus command and control guys, so they have less risk of pulling a Whitley or pulling a Gore and kind of going back into their shell. So yeah, right now it's still Gore at this very, very second, but I think that's going to change here within the next month, and that might be Kirby.
Yeah, 1 walk to 12 strikeouts is pretty good. He's only pitched 8 2/3 inning, and obviously that is one of the few guys I got to really cover in extended spring training. Was Kirby and Asa Lacy were the 2 big gets of mine, and that's why I put that tweet out. I was like, this is insane. We had a scout at him at 102, and he was commanding all over the place. And the only thing that he got on, and that might be where he goes, because he can paint all over the board. But when he gets through the lineup, might be a little bit of his problem. And that was when Justin Foscue took him 460, because he threw a fastball up. He threw a 99 up, but Foscue was sitting on it and took him 460 out of the freaking stadium. I don't disagree. I think Kirby's in that conversation. He's elite, and he has been on my list for so long because, like you said, you're getting into it how I am. I like command and control pitchers. That is literally where I went with Logan Gilbert. I said, listen, he's not the most explosive. Gore, probably more explosive. Manoah's more explosive. I'd say Kirby's more explosive, but Gilbert represented the best combination of, I think, 3+ pitches, being able to command the zone at will, having the control on the mound, just ice in his veins. He gets it done. And I think he's an unsexy top type of pitcher to look at. And that was why I was so in on him. There's one other guy that I don't have in the general area, but he is jumping up in people's minds all over the place. And God, do I remember talking about him so much. I think it was in the 2019 draft, because the 2019 draft sucked with pitching. And James and I would kind of debate about it. And Nick Lodolo was one of those guys in a kind of pitch and command area that I tended to like. I'm not overtly invested no matter what, but Lodolo has been a monster this year. 4 starts, 22 2/3 of an inning. He struck out 32 batters. He's got a sub-1 whip and a sub-0.5 ERA, which is bonkers. 6 walks of those 32 strikeouts. Hasn't given up a homer, 1 earned run, and 13 total hits. Where do you think Lodolo sits on this? Where does he sit for you when you're thinking update and when you talk about that clump of pitchers? Has he done enough? Has he sold you enough to move up? Or it's a nice start in 4 starts, even though he's got a pretty aggressive assignment? I mean, he's 23, but he went right to AA. What are your thoughts on Nick Lodolo?
Yeah, he's definitely kind of like sneaking in like into the clubhouse right now. Like he's kind of in that back end of that elite, top tier clump we've been talking about. I don't think he's in the thick of it yet, but he's definitely knocking on the door. And he's just been so good, even back in 2019 in his 8 starts where he had 30 strikeouts to no walks. Now he's up to 62 strikeouts to 6 walks in 41 innings. That is just insane. And he's another one where he's not like necessarily electric. He doesn't have the huge stuff, but he has very good stuff across the board, potential for 3 above average or better offerings, really good command and control as well. Maybe not quite on Kirby's level, but just a peg below it. So I think he's kind of like George Kirby-esque, but just scaled back to like 90% across the board. But he's a guy that the high floor, I think he's, a number 3, maybe even a number 2. It's a guy that's going to get you really good stats year in, year out. You don't have to worry about him. I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff anytime soon or have, battle command issues, anything like that. So, yeah, Lodolo is definitely sneaking up there. And I think he could be up maybe later this year. We'll see how Cincinnati wants to play with, deal with him. But yeah, definitely going to be a big impact arm pretty soon here.
He actually kind of reminds me of my thought. No, they're not 1 for 1 at all. So no one get me wrong here, but it reminds me of like how I like Spencer Howard. I've liked Spencer Howard. Like Spencer Howard is not electric, but he's 3+, commanding type of pitches where he can come off and on. And Lodolo kind of has that. It's not electric stuff. It's been pretty good. How about a couple who'd you rather's verses here? You ready?
Ready.
Nick Lodolo or Mick Abel? Abel.
It is Abel, yeah. Actually, we got corrected by his aunt.
Good. You know how I can get when I actually know a name, I'll correct it, but I don't try to be the guy. Nick Abel, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. She was nice about it. She's like, "Hey, heard your podcast is actually Abel." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." She's very nice about it. But man, I do say I will say Lodolo, but I'm a big Mick Abel guy. Like I think he's got like Strasburg upside, but yeah, I think Lodolo. Yeah, Lodolo is definitely safer, obviously much more advanced. So, yeah, I'll go Lodolo.
This is a big one right here. I'm pitting him against a guy who has a 2.80 ERA, 31 strikeouts in 16 innings pitched. And he's at AA right now. And he has a beautiful head of hair. Nick Lodolo versus DL Hall.
Ooh. Man.
I'm going Abel with you, by the way. I just want everyone to know my current ranks. As much as I'm talking up Lodolo, he's like just inside the top 100. There's only so many pitchers that can be in there. I'm also taking Abel, but I want to really press this now. So it's DL Hall versus Lodolo.
I'm going to lean DL Hall, but at the same time, I still have concerns about his overall command and control, though it has gotten better. So I think Lodolo is safer, but Hall's stuff is just so damn electric. I think he could be one of the best best pitchers in baseball in a few years. So I'll lean Hall in this one.
I'm also going DL Hall. Last one, Libertor versus Lodolo.
Lodolo. I've been a big Libertor guy, but I just think Lodolo has a better all-around arsenal, slightly better command and control profile. I think he's a rung above Libertor.
Okay. I have all those guys above Lodolo right now. The one that I think can be the closest to move, because Abel's been really impressive. Like, high school pitching is just dicey in general, especially the investment in it. Gore is kind of hitting me right now too. Like, Gore is one of the few high school pitchers that I went so hard on, and like, you could have held on and really, and I actually have traded him over time because I just, the value of what I put into pitchers and rookie pitchers is just minimal in general. So I would see them as assets to move, but like, I'm always a little dicey about big movement, and he's like fresh, but he's looked so electric to start. But I've got Lodolo over all those guys we talked about, under all those guys. I still have Libertor, even though it's been kind of a porous start. I think he is, I think he can still be a monster. And I'm not giving up quite yet, but Lodolo is on a really, really good path. I have got a poll for you. I don't know if you saw me put this up, and I was inspired by my friend Dennis Sidler, who owns Sid's Graphs, who you guys hear about all the time on here because he's the best, and he's got some of the actually in our video right here. If people can see on YouTube, I've got little Riley Green right there. Little what is that? Little Ed Howard helmet over there. He's just got a bunch of really cool stuff. And Dennis brought this up to me, and when he texted me this, I went, oh, just like, like, well, I'll do to you, Eric. I'll be like, this guy or this guy, and you're just like, oh, and I went, I don't know. So I put this tweet out, and I was inspired by it, and I teased it at the back end of last episode. So I'm going to ask you, as I did the tweet, I said, Highlander, there can only be one prospect that you are going to invest in: Luis Matos or Michael Harris. Now think about it for a second, because I'm going to give you stats here. As of Wednesday, Luis Matos, 24 hits in 77 at-bats, hitting .312 with 2 homers, 3 stolen bases, and 14 RBIs. A nice little assignment. He's at low A, 19 years old. Bat looks great. No OBP to speak of, but he's doing all the job that you expect. Michael Harris, also 24 hits in 68 at-bats, 2 homers, 4 stolen bases, a .353 batting average, but no OBP to speak of, 375. The biggest difference between the two actually is their OPS, 797 for Matos, 890 for Michael Harris. Harris a little bit older, 1 level up. I gave you enough time to really sit on it. Matos versus Michael Harris, and then I'll tell the poll results for people. What you got?
I do lean Matos here, even though Harris has flown up my rankings. I really like what I've seen out of him, this year, the reports from, last year, and even, a little bit of what he showed in 2019 as well. He's a 3rd round pick, had, good tools, not like off the charts tools, but just really kind of good across the board. Like, this does everything well without really standing out in any one area. And I think Matos is kind of the same way, but with a little more oomph in that profile. I think there's a little more speed there. I think there's a little more raw power there. You've seen some of the exit velos he's been showing, back in spring training. So I think there's just a little bit more upside with Matos. So I will lean that way. But again, Michael Harris is another one that I really like right now.
Have you looked at the poll at all?
I have not.
Okay, good. I don't want you to. What do you think the voting is at? It's I put it up only a couple hours. To be frank, when people go back and listen to this, you can go and look on my timeline, and you will see the end result, and there'll probably be more votes. We're about just south of 300 votes because I only put it up a couple hours ago. What do you think the voting looks like? How I phrased it.
Recency bias is a heck of a drug. So here's just kind of the. Matos was like the big name a little while ago. Now it's Harris. I think this would be closer than I would originally have thought. I'll say I still think Matos is probably leading it, but I'll go like, a hair under 60-40 Matos.
70% Luis Matos.
Wow. Okay.
People have not forgot. I am actually shocked at this poll result. This is surprising to me for many things that you just said. It also shows the wealth of knowledge that is out there and people paying attention, because you're right. Matos has not been like, there's not like pipeline clips and people losing their mind, but Michael Harris had momentum and he's kept it. You had James's big rank on him, people talking, hitting 353, pipeline covering him a lot more. You've seen all of this. He's under 30% picked here. And it's fascinating to me. And I am shocked at this. I mean, in my own rankings, I have Matos over him. So, but it's not that far. I'd edge him out just a little bit. How I explained this when I was talking with Dennis about this, I had said, if I want to, like, in just one sentence explain how I view about this, I would say Matos for the upside, Harris for the floor. And Harris, I am convicted Harris is a major league outfielder, and he does it for quite some time. I'm very convicted in that. Yep. Now that I see him and all that stuff. And I kind of liken him a little bit. Size is a little bit different, but maybe it's going to be a similar path to a Trent Grisham. Think about a Grisham hitting at the top of the lineup. Grisham's probably got a little bit more power. He was a better OBP guy, but similar, like stealing bases, homer. He's not an all-star, but maybe he's like fringy. Like, that's where I can see Michael Harris, and the safety in that makes me feel good. But Matos, yes, he has a floor. He's 19. We haven't seen a ton of stateside stuff, probably a major leaguer. But the upside we look at is, like you said, 35 homers. We're looking at like a 35 homer potential or something like that. That just goes through the freaking roof. And we can't help ourselves but play upside, right?
Right. Absolutely. That's what everyone looks at, especially with the younger prospects, like what could be. And I think the what could be with Matos is a bit higher than Harris. But, I've even said I thought Michael Harris could be the best out of the trio of Braves outfield prospects. I think he could end up being better than both Christian Pache and Drew Waters. And that's no
from a fantasy perspective. I think that's definitely true. Pache is going to be tough just because defensively how good he is, but offense, I don't know. He's starting to it's starting to look dicey on where it's going to go offense. And Waters, I had said to James a couple weeks ago, like, I think Michael Harris in love has moved above Drew Waters. But as we say that, Drew Waters has started to pick it up. He's hitting a couple homers. He's over 300 now. He's kind of reminding people. And we also don't know. I mean, we're in this weird period. We're recording this where Ozuna is out for a couple months, and they've got to make a move. And some people have asked Drew Waters. I just can't imagine. There's no way he's ready for that. They would do that. But there was a time and period, I think, where people would have thought he was. And Michael Harris may have moved past him. But yeah, I don't think it's insane to think that from a fantasy perspective, Harris is better. And real life, maybe, Pache is just really tough. That's a Gold Glove type of potential.
Right.
Guy. But you know what? Ender Inciarte was as well. And, where the hell is he?
Right.
But are you surprised by those results? Does that kind of shock you to see like over 70% go to Luis Matos?
I am.
It does me.
Yeah, I definitely am. Actually, I thought it'd be a lot closer just because of all of the, Harris has gotten more hype recently than Matos, so I thought that would have made it a lot closer. I put out some of those polls too, where I did one Jesus Luzardo versus like Trevor Rogers, and it was overwhelmingly Trevor Rogers. So it's like that recency thing always factors into these polls. Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't closer.
And that's usually what I pull them for, because not to be like crass about it, but like you're not like going to the internet to get the take on the prospect that you're going to make your move for. You shouldn't go to Twitter, pull them out and be like, oh, well, now that 50,000 people want me to trade this guy, I'll trade them. No, I like to learn about the recency bias. I like to learn where the thought process is in people, and it helps me maneuver the situation. Speaking of which, this is not that situation, but this is being able to poll you specifically because you're here. You are a Red Sox guy, and you guys have an interesting trio of prospects. So I couldn't like let you go and not talk about Kelenic. We can't not talk about the Red Sox. And simplistically, you've got three guys that are all in the general area. And I think Jarred Duran has done the best job of all of these guys to bring the hype up to the category, because at the end of the day, Casas might be, a number 3, 4 impact, big 4 category player. Jeter Downs has a potential to be a 5 category player. I've loved him since he was with the Reds. And, if you're old school prospect 1 and Nick Prado and Jesus Sanchez and you see them winning now and you think of me, you also think of Jeter Downs back in those days, because that was my big defender. So I've always loved them. I've been critical back and forth about Jarred Duran, but he looks like a freaking monster. So what, if anything, has changed in the evaluation of the Red Sox prospects for you, and how are you pairing them out with the incredible run that Duran is on right now? How do you pair them out, and has anything changed in the evaluation recently?
Yeah, a little bit has, and it's as a Red Sox fan, this is a really exciting time because the system got, as I said in an article a couple years ago, it got Dombrowski'd. He always trades away the guys, so we kind of went from having one of the top systems in baseball to a bottom system. And now it's kind of catching back up with these guys leading the way. Jarred Duran, man, I saw him 2019, a lot. Like when he got up to Double-A after he tore up the Carolina League early in the season, and he did not look good. Like
No.
even his defense and center was like kind of suspect. I think
AFL was garbage. He was garbage in the AFL too.
Yeah. So like after that hot start, he kind of like the rest of 2019 did not go well for him. So I was like, all right. So was that kind of a fluke that we saw? Like, what did we see? What type of player is he going to be? Then you hear the reports about the changing of the hand slot at the alt site last year, unlocking more power. He started hitting some bombs in spring training, and now he's just on an absolute power assault. He had those game with 2 home runs that were 480 and 475. Like, that is ridiculous. And he's not like a huge dude. Like, Christian Casas is a huge dude. Like, I saw him
dude.
Yeah, and he's big. Like you see that the height and the weight in videos. But then when I saw him live a couple weeks ago for the first time, I'm like, man, this dude is a absolute mammoth. Like, he is like Mo Vaughn, Big Poppy over there. Just this big dude. So didn't really get a lot of good looks at him. But Duran I'm very excited for him. The good thing is it looks like the speed is still there. Like, he's not going into like a power first type of guy. He's still running a good bit, has that elite speed. Maybe he is striking out a bit more, so maybe he traded a little bit of average for this additional power.
But that's also the initial run. Like, I always you're bringing up a really great point about the speed. You always like to watch these like really speed guys when they start to move to power, because sometimes that falls by the wayside. But you should expect strikeouts and average to dip a little bit when they make the power transition. He started doing this in like the Dominican Winter League of 2020, where he really started to show this off. And he's hitting like mammoths now. Like, he's not just hitting like little tiny dingers or whatnot. Like, he's straight up like, I hit dingers. Like,
these are big boy home run. Big boy
home runs. That's a great way to put it. Totally. So how do you rank these guys? And when you're looking at them, I cut you off before you could really get into Jeter Downs and stuff, but how do you, because it sounds like you've evolved with the evaluation of Jarred Duran, because I didn't go all out, but I moved him outside the top 100 easy after the AFL. I was like, nope, I'm done with this. And then now we're back. We're way back. So I have changed my evaluation as he has changed his entire game. How do you rank them?
At this very second, I rank them Casas, Duran, Downs, but they're all in my top 40 overall. Like, I'm very high in all 3 of these guys. I think, with Jeter Downs, I think his swing is tailor-made for Fenway. I know he pulls the ball a lot. I think he's going to have a lot of doubles off that monster, potential 2020 caliber guy, decent average and decent OB. He's always been a good walk rate guy as well. So I think he's got just a really good all-around profile. But I think Casas, like you mentioned, has that potential to be that impact 3-4 hitter. Plug him in right in the middle of that lineup with Devers, with Bogarts. Maybe, I don't know if JD will still be here at that point in time, but it'll still be a very good core around him. So he's gonna be one of those guys that's going to be 100 plus RBI, 100 plus runs, potential for 40 bombs, just that impact bat. And, Duran's catching right up though, because, he adds the speed that Casas can't, and has more speed than Downs has, even though Downs is above average speed guy. So, right now it's Casas, Duran, Downs, but all very high for me.
You bring up a good thing. We're going to get into some hot performers, and I want to get your impression on them and where you've been placing them, and I'll interject with you. I've also got a couple deeper league player debates that I'm excited to get to. But, you and I were exchanging DMs a week or so ago, whatever. And we were talking about like Simeon Woods Richardson, which we can avoid him because we're going to have him in a debate a little bit later. So don't talk about him. But we were talking because you've been out seeing some games, which I know has felt really good. You got any nuggets for us? I'm not sure all the prospects that you've seen, but you got any nuggets for some of the prospects that you've scouted in the recent weeks, some of the guys that you've seen come through that you want to share with us?
Not a whole ton. I haven't had a chance to get to a lot of games because after Portland had their first home series, they went on the road for like 2-3 straight weeks, so that was a bit tough. But yeah, man, it's just been great to get back into the ballpark. I don't know if you want. I do have a nugget about Woods Richardson though. He's added a slider this year,
Yeah.
which something I was. It's funny because I was down watching his bullpen before the game and actually started talking to his father, who was down there as well. Great guy. And he started kind of spiking these sliders in the dirt. I was like, wait a minute, that's not his changeup. That's not his curveball. His curveball was 10 miles an hour slower than that. And then his father's like, yeah, he's been working on a slider this offseason. I'm like, oh, interesting. And then he threw a handful in the game, looked good break wise, but the feel just wasn't there. Obviously, it's a new pitch for him, but
and he needed that because I remember when he was coming out, he was like more predominant 2-pitch pitcher, which was the problem. He was like 2+ pitches and needed to develop. So for him to go 4 deep, that's good. I know you walked away relatively impressed with him.
Yeah, absolutely. The command kind of went in the fourth inning. He got tagged for a couple runs, but he was missing bats. Changeup looked really good as well. The fastball was sitting 92, 95. That looks pretty solid. Yeah, I was very impressed. And so he really liked to attack hitters. I like to see that guys that aren't afraid to attack with their stuff. He seemed to really be able to work up in the zone. Mixes his pitch as well. Really good sequencing. Yes, I was pretty impressed with him for sure.
All right, so let's go through some there's some impressive performances, and we're in the struggle of like, where do we start making the changes, and where do we I suppose, like, I don't do like what I don't even really like to go too crazy into talking into like 60 and 55 grades and all that type of stuff. But, like you've got FVs that Long and Hagen talks about. If we were starting to change our future values and whatnot, there's players that we're going to start going in on, even on early seasons. So these have been some impressive performances, and let's get your take on it. One of the ones that it's been like radar for a year, and we've slowly been ticking up and up and up. His position holds me back overall, but you can't deny what this guy is doing right now. He's already seen a promotion, and I'm talking about Francisco Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez with the Mets was playing in low A, hit 400 with a couple homers, even had a couple stolen bases. And if you've seen Francisco Alvarez, he's a thick dude. He's a big old thick catcher dude that you're not expecting that. So those are just nice. That's a nice little pleasant surprise that you get out of him. But Francisco Alvarez then just gets a promotion, doing fine. I think he's only had one game, hitting 250, got his first hit. People are conflicted in how high they want to go on Alvarez. I think he is an offensive monster, and I did a big move on him, but I feel like I've capped him based on his position, and still based statistically where I think he's going to go. I think he's advanced for the levels. I think he's going to, taper back a little bit, but I moved him up to be my number 2 overall fantasy catcher, obviously behind Adley Rutschman, but that still has a couple guys you have to like, there's a couple decent names you're going to move over. Joey Bart would be in there, those type of players. Where are you at on Francisco Alvarez in the absolute dominant start? Dude's got a 400, I think actually on the season. Let's see, where is he at? Because I just, over 500 OBPs, a 4.56 guy right now with an 1100 OPS. He's been a monster. Some might even say in real life he's a top 15 prospect, but what say you, Eric?
Yeah, he's my number 2 catching prospect for Dynasty as well now. I moved him ahead of Bart, Austin Wells, guys like that, because he, and people ask me, like, I don't usually rank catching prospects too highly. And some people ask me, hey, why don't you have so-and-so higher? I'm like, well, I really don't rank them high for fantasy unless they're like the really super elite offensive guys like an Adley Rutschman is. And I think obviously Alvarez is not on Rutschman's level, but if Rutschman wasn't there, Alvarez is a really good offensive catcher. Like, we kind of can't compare him to Rutschman, but he can hit for average. He can hit for power. The approach is phenomenal for his age. I believe he has twice as many walks as strikeouts right now, which is why his OBP is like pushing 600.
Yeah, it's like 549. I think it's
ridiculous.
15 to 12 or something like that. He's also got
up a little bit.
He's also kind of like a tree trunk a little bit, like where he's got this really fun stance where it's just kind of like open stance out, and he's very upright because he's not like a super crazy tall dude. I think he's like 5'11" or whatnot, and he just has this really great attack. He's a really great sense of the ball. he physically is advanced, I believe, for the levels that he's playing at, and he's showing an incredible eye for the ball. I'm always weary, though, because Francisco Mejia showed this exact same thing at lower levels. Now, physically, not remotely close. Mejia,
Right.
5'9" or 8" or whatever, a $180, faster, but had an advanced approach that ended up catching up with him a little bit, stunting his stats. And he's actually done okay at the major league level. Francisco Alvarez has like a similar offensive bat approach, but he's not going to steal a bunch of bases. He's a big, thick dude who's going to hit homers. This is like a smaller Gary Sanchez with good average. I mean, this is a guy that could hit 30 homers at a big league level, and that's why I've gone in and I've made him a top 50 prospect. And that, for me, that's a huge move. I was just curious at where anybody, because I haven't talked to anybody about Francisco Alvarez, just didn't know if anybody else has kind of jumped on it. I think it's one thing to make him, the number 2 catcher. I think that's becoming easier to do. It's just how far in are you willing to go? And I told myself, I'm going in. I'm going inside top 50, and I don't do that a ton with catchers.
Yeah, neither do I. Right now, my last update last week had him 61, but then I look at some names above him, like the next 10 above him. There are probably some names I'm moving down, like Robert Poisson, for example, George Valera. I'm bump those guys down. So yeah, he's definitely approaching top 50 for me as well.
Yeah. Jesus Sanchez, the rebirth, the Welsh rebirth, we back. 449, 7 homers. He even threw a stolen base in there the other day. 479 OBP. He's never been a massive OBP guy. That's not his game. But in 69 at bats, only 13 strikeouts, which is very impressive for his game. He's hitting the ball harder. He's attacking upper zone fastballs. Looks like he's catching off-speed stuff better. He's striking out at lesser of a clip. But are you in on Jesus Sanchez? This is a tough one for a lot of people. Do you buy what's happening, or is this simply quad A?
Yeah, I don't think I was ever out on Sanchez. Like, I don't think I was as big of a Sanchez guy as you are, but I always kind of liked the profile, but he just never put it all together. Like, he showed the raw power, but, had a lower fly ball rate, was kind of more, line drive, ground ball guy. So it's nice to see him driving the ball in the air more consistently this season. Well, I don't think that obviously this pace won't continue. I don't think he's like a 35, 40 homer guy, but 25 or so, mid 20s, I think is very realistic. Solid enough batting average. That kind of tapered off in the minors where he was showing, better contact skills, hitting for over 300 his first 3 years. Then it kind of dipped down, further and further as he got up into the higher levels. But yeah, I think there's just a good all around profile here. Is he an all-star? Maybe not, but I think there's a chance for him to be like a solid regular, like a number 5 hitter, 270, 25 homer type, throwing a handful of steals every year. So yeah,
I'm like, put him on your update. Where do you think you put it? Let's just assume tomorrow you're going to do an update, because like, ironically, if you're not going to do one until the draft, he might be gone. Like, he could come back up and get his at bats and be gone and whatnot. Right. I could give you some who you rathers, but where do you think he sits? Like, top 75, outside the top 100. Maybe I jumped too quick because you're outside the top 100, inside the 75 to 100, inside the top 50. Give me a general range and I'll give you a couple players.
Right now for me, he's 92. But I actually might do another update. I just realized the draft is, almost 2 months away. So I might do another update before then. I love
the Welsh. I just want everybody to know, if I just convinced Eric Cross to do another update, you guys better love me, because that's thanks to me. Just me. No, sorry, go ahead. So you're 92. So
show Welsh the love on Twitter, everybody. Go ahead and do it. Yeah, so he's 92 for me right now, but I can see him getting up into that 75 range. Yeah, I don't know about 50, but 75 is realistic.
See, I'm in the exact same place as you are. He's in the 90s for me right now. And I'm debating because I've got some guys like, let me ask you this one, because this is one I struggle with, because I really I'm just not into this other guy. Jesus Sanchez or Nolan Jones? Nolan Jones sucks this year, but he obviously is a, big power. He better OBP, stuff like that. But Nolan Jones or Jesus Sanchez?
You like him so little, you've got his name for a second.
I was about to say, well, you know what I was thinking in my head? I'm like, did I just call him Nick? I don't know if I did. Did I call him Nick when I said that, or say Nolan?
I thought you said Nolan.
Okay, I think I said it right, but I'm already moving to the next player, by the way. I, in my head, called him Nick, and I went, what did I do? Nolan Jones or Jesus Sanchez?
Jesus Sanchez. Jones was 4 spots higher on my last update, but that's already changed. Like, Jones is a guy I've consistently been pumping down my rank. He's too passive too much swing and miss to the game. Doesn't capitalize on his power. I don't like the profile with Jones. So yeah, okay. I'll go Sanchez.
How about this one? This is a fascinating debate because someone was forgive me for forgetting who it was. That's a great question, and you should ask these questions. But they had asked like, "Hey," and it's not this guy, by the way. They said, "I haven't heard anything about Isaiah Green. Should I think about dropping him?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Well, the reason you haven't heard anything about Isaiah Green and many other prospects is because they are at extended camp level right now, and that means they may go to rookie ball level. So there is something going on in guys like Eric Pena, Maximo Acosta, blah blah blah, where you're not seeing these players because they're at extended spring training for whatever reasons. Isaiah Green is another one of those, but it has me sparked because this guy has not seen any professional time. Jesus Sanchez or Heston Kjerstad?
Ooh, I think I like Kjerstad a bit more. I really like that power. There's some more promising reports on the hit tool. That was one thing I was concerned about. So I think, those concerns have kind of been silenced a bit. Yeah, I really like that power because I think that potential for an impact bat is higher than Sanchez. So I'll lean Kjerstad here.
Okay. I think that's the range. I think that's the range if people are wanting to understand. Yeah, and I think there's arguments if you are a little bit more competitive and you're willing to take a little bit more risk. There are players like the Nolan Joneses that you could move off of. Taylor Trammell's. I think that's another. I mean, Taylor Trammell's I think he took the lead in batting average in the minor leagues over Jesus Sanchez. But there are some of those guys. Maybe an O'Neal Cruz is another one of those. I mean, what do you do? O'Neal Cruz, who is, I think, still a little bit stunted as far as like where he should be compared to Jesus Sanchez. I mean, O'Neal Cruz is living off the power, but he's been weird positionally. I think you can make an argument that you move off of O'Neal Cruz to take a risk that Sanchez connected, and I wouldn't really worry about it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I like the upside of Cruz, but yeah, it's kind of a weird spot for him, like where you don't know like what the future holds for him and how good he could really be. So with Sanchez, looking like he's going to be called back up any day now. Yeah, I think I'd rather have Sanchez long term.
Okay, a couple more impressions on some hot prospects, and I got a couple debates before we get you out of here. My boy Nick Prado, who I was trying to say Nick Nolan Jones, 311. He's up to 311. His Amber of his energy. Whoa, is that 311? Does that work?
I think so.
Yeah, that sounds right band. Is that okay? Nick Prado currently hitting 311 with a 450 OBP, 6 homers, 3 stolen bases, 1100 OPS. It's everything I could possibly ask for and more. But he's another one of those guys. It was up and then way, way down. Really struggled at Lexington. Just 2 years of struggles, and the click has started to move through. Give me your take on Nick Prado. Where are you at with him? How much are you buying into this?
It's funny because I was kind of a Prado guy, back in 2017, 2018. And then, like you mentioned, he, along with basically everybody at that level of Wilmington in the Carolina League, was like him, MJ Melendez, Celie Matisse. They all were terrible in striking out basically at half their bats, it seemed like. So I am buying back in a bit here because Prado is one of those guys that'll get a longer leash because he has that really good defense at first. He's maybe not a Gold Glove caliber, but definitely a very good defensive first baseman. So that always give you that longer leash, give you more time to try to figure it out at the plate. And he's really kind of tapping into that power. He's always been a nice raw power guy. So I'm not surprised that he's hitting for 6 home runs so far in 80 plate appearances. He's always had that little bit of speed. He has been that surprisingly sneaky good speed, kind of like Evan White. He's adding a bit of speed as well that you don't really expect from a first baseman. But yeah, I'm buying back in because he's still walking a good amount. He's always been a decent walk rate guy, around 10%. He's cut the K rate this year, which has been very, very encouraging. So yeah, I don't know how long this will last, but yeah, I'm kind of encouraged right now.
I said it the other day when I saw a picture of one of his swings. It reminds me of what Judd Fabian is doing in Florida, where Judd's got his swing was really long and he shortened it up. And these guys, like, they'll sit back and have that longer swing, just being like, well, I got the bat speed and I got the power. When I tap into it, they worry about shortening it up. Are they going to start to sacrifice power? Then you just make better contact. Nick did the same thing because I saw him like late 2020 before quarantine, and he was still long and he was still just chasing, and it looks fixed and it looks better. Last one, as far as impressions go, is another Kansas City Royal, and it's Alec Marsh. Alec Marsh in 3 starts has struck out 27, 16 innings pitch. He's got a win in there. ERA is in the 3s. WHIP is in the 1s. I mean, him and Bolin have both just really impressed. I mean, I guess I could just throw Bolin in there as well. You know, what have you? They're the afterthought guys, but I know Marsh and Bolin they're moving up all of our lists. But did you have a preference between Marsh or Bolin?
Not really. I mean, I've had Bolin ranked a bit higher, but Marsh has been climbing my ranks a good bit. Now they're very similar. I think I have them, within 10, 15 spots apart. It's so close. I don't remember off the top of my head who I have ranked higher because it's that close. But yeah, Marsh has really been impressing me, and in Kansas City in general, they've done a really good job over the last half decade or so at accumulating pitching talent. The pitching depth in the system is phenomenal. Everyone talks about Tampa Bay and Miami and these orgs and all the depth and talent they have on the mound. Kansas City is right there with them. Maybe they don't have the flashy names. Well, now they do with Asa Lacy and Daniel
Lynch. It's like
Lynch,
the old school Mets thing. It's like where the Mets idea was you develop young pitching. They traded for Syndergaard. You get DeGrom. You build these guys, and then you spend your money on hitters. You don't try to spend your money on the pitchers because of also think of the investment of cash to pitchers with arms and stuff like that. You build through with college arms and you just go. And the Diamondbacks just did that in recent years where it was just like, I mean, they took Walston, and they took Malone and they ended up moving him. But, they were getting like Drew Jameson and Tommy Henry. And, they're just starting to teams, I think, are pushing maybe a little bit more. Just get arms, get tons of arms. And I'm not sure, like you're pointing out, anybody's doing it better than the Royals right now. They're developing them left and right, creating trade value, creating depth, which allows them to spend in other places. It's a great place, and Marsh and Bolin are both at the top of it. I've been very impressed. I mean, James Anderson has been a huge Bolin guy. I'm impressed with it, but Marsh as well. Marsh was actually, if people remember my story of getting kicked out of the Royals facility at the start of minor league spring training, the Rangers guy's like, "Hey, you can go over there." I'm like, "Cool." I'll go over there, walk over. I see Hans Krause. I'm like, "This is great." Taking pictures. I'm just about to video Evan Carter, and then the guy boots me out. Alec Marsh was pitching, and that Marsh would have been one of the players I wouldn't got to see. And of course I didn't. So I was back on it, but no preference, Marsh or Bolin, kind of in the same general tier.
Yeah, in same general tier. And I like them both. They're both kind of sneaking up my rankings a good bit here. And I've really been impressed with Marsh. I'm combining words here.
I know.
You're rubbing off on me, Welsh.
That's what happens.
All right, he's been very impressive. Missing bats, the walk rate's improved. But yeah, definitely on the rise.
Yeah, and he's a buy guy. Like he's in that tier of there's like so many pitchers that you pay for late. Like someone could be like, "Whoa, is he like a top 100?" Like, dude, he's somewhere between. I think Marsh and Bolin. They're somewhere between like the 125 and 250 range. Somewhere in that. Like, am I going to go top 100 on those players? Nope. But others may, and that's totally fine. They could work out. We got a couple minutes here. I want to do some debates with you. And these are deeper league debates. Are you ready, Eric?
Let's do it.
I'm going to pick a little bit on this one. This is going to be a picky one. And it's one player that I think we're all joining on, but there's another player that I have been very picky about in the industry jumping on, and I need to gauge because I've never quite, and this is because I've seen this guy so much. So the first guy that we're all changing our tune on, I'm changing my tune on because boy, does it look impressive. And I saw a bunch of him is Honkinzy Noel. If I said his name correctly, it's a rough one. Starts with a J, but I listened to the podcast.
JH.
Yeah, I think it's Honkinzy Noel, who is playing third, first, whatever it is. He actually just get hit on the hand the other day, and I haven't seen if it's a fracture, if it's bad. He hasn't played since he got hit. That was about 3 days ago since we're recording this. But in low A, he's been hitting 358, 5 homers, 21 RBIs. I believe he's near the leaders in RBIs, 24 hits on the season. He's been phenomenal. 1,000 OPS. I'm a buyer because the swing, the body, he's always just like, he was like a big dude who had no results over in the Indians camp. And his swing looks completely changed. His pitch recognition looks, it looks elite level, at least at where he's playing. The pick, though, is against Alexfree Planez. Alexfree is one that has always been my push because people have fallen in love with the swing. And I don't recall if you did or not, but I know the industry does, and it's okay. I've seen him in person a whole bunch and was never overtly impressed because he had zero pitch recognition. But hey, he was a big physical 6'2", $185. When you get solo videos you really love on him. And the reason I bring this up is Noel, this is the perfect and prime example of an absolute nobody's paying attention to prospect who is dominating early on to a loved prospect who has had zero results, but has had skill sets and people have fallen into. And I have seen people have him as high as inside the top 200. So I ask you, we're staying with the team. We're going with the Indians on both sides. Hunkinzie Noel or Alexfree Plenez.
This has gotten a lot closer this season, but I still have Plenez about 15, 20 spots ahead of Noel in my overall, just because, my list does kind of lean a little more towards upside than floor. And I think Plenez, when you factor in the speed that he has, Noel doesn't really have much speed. Yeah, he does have 11 steals in 126 games. All of those were pre-2020, none this year.
He got like bigger. He got bigger.
Yeah, he got thicker. So I don't think you're gonna get any speed out of him moving forward outside of a rogue steal here or there. But Plenez, I think, has at least average to above average speed long term, even if he does fill out that frame a bit. But I think could be a guy that pushes 2020 long term, maybe at peak. So just that added speed, I think, would lean me towards Plenez. But I will say I think Noel is safer because I think he's a better pure hitter than Plenez is. But I will lean Plenez here in this one.
I am full bore Noel. It's not even remotely close. And it's hilarious because I've seen so much of these guys at the lower levels and neither one of them really jumped off. They are within a month of each other and they're both in Lynchburg. They're both Hillcats. And Plenez is hitting 159. He does have 3 stolen bases. He's got a home run, which is nice to see. But he's got also a sub 200 OBP, 22 strikeouts to 2 walks on the year. That's kind of in a Cleveland thing. Not that Noel is, not going to have those same issues. But I'm going to go with Noel. And I was curious at where it was gauged. All right, let's burn through a couple of these others because you got to get to some recordings as well. Let's go to the pitching one. Luis Medina, who has been the leader in strikeouts in the minor leagues, versus Simeon Woods Richardson. Both of these pitches, it's a tough one. Simeon Woods has probably been valued over. Medina's all the stuff, but has bad walk rates. Looks like he's connected back on it. Who you got? Luis Medina, Simeon Woods Richardson.
I got to go Simeon Woods Richardson. I do love Medina, though, which it makes me feel dirty to say as he's a Yankee prospect, and I'm a Red Sox fan. But I've always liked Medina. The stuff obviously is electric, can miss bats at an elite clip. But as you mentioned, command and control has been an issue, though it has gotten better. Started showing some signs of improvement there in 2019. This year looks a little better. Still not great, but I think, and it's not like SWR is a big command guy. He has his own inconsistencies with command, and that showed in my live look a couple weeks ago. But I think there's a better all-around arsenal. His arsenal is deeper, command's a little better. Maybe Medina has the 2 best pitches if you kind of combine their arsenals, but deeper arsenal, slightly better command and control profile. So I do lean Woods Richardson, but Medina could have some really good value, a lot of weight. Even if he goes to the bullpen, I think he could be an electric bullpen arm as well. So, but I'll take Simeon because he's a little bit safer, I think.
I'm with you on that one as well. I think Medina's still got some bullpen stuff. I like to see that he's controlled it. He's a huge strikeout guy. It's a huge fastball, but Simeon Woods Richardson has been doing this at a very young age. Also a very good athlete too. When I saw him at the Dream Series, he was there, as a hitter as well. So I'm going to go with him. Last one. This is one of your guys, another Red Sox who's been very good. Gilberto Jimenez, who's gotten thick, making contact. The contact is roughly almost all singles right now. That's kind of been his game, but he has 4 stolen bases, does have a homer, hitting 333, a 383 OBP, 25 hits. We were talking about, Luis Matos and Michael Harris. He's got more hits than him. Jimenez really is transformed, is looking more like the player that he's going to be in the future. Love to see him get out of low A and get challenged a little bit more versus a very hyped guy who's getting a lot of love as people are paying attention to him. I covered him most recently with the Rangers. Evan Carter, only hitting 232, but a 449 OBP in the minors so far this year. 10 stolen bases. He's a big dude, 6'4", probably they list him at 190. He's probably closer to 200. He's got a homer in there. 10 stolen bases, no RBIs to speak of, 3, but 13 hits on the year, but a big OBP guy, big stolen bases, big athlete with lots of potential love into the future. Jimenez or Carter?
I really like Evan Carter, but I got to go Jimenez, and that's not just my Red Sox bias coming out here. I think, well, they're both very toolsy. I think they both have really good, futures ahead of them, both high upside guys. I think Jimenez is a better pure hitter. He's shown that hit for average everywhere. I think there's an above average hit tool there, plus speed and the power. Maybe it hasn't gone on a Jarren Duran jump, but the power has slowly been, trending up to maybe he's like a 15 homer guy long term. You might not think that right now because he has 4 home runs in 144 games, but like you mentioned, he's bulked up. He's driving the ball better than he ever has. So I think there's a better all-around profile. And I still got to wonder how much, average Evan Carter hits for. He's still very young. He's still only 18 at a full season A-ball assignment. I think he's, if not the youngest, one of the youngest at that level right now. And, he looks a little, 232 average, but definitely walking a ton, which is very promising. And I think there's more power to fill on that frame as he matures physically. But I think just the all-around profile, I would lean Jimenez here. But I like both these guys a lot.
I think the upside goes to Carter. It's very close. I have Jimenez on this upside, maybe to Carter, but it has become very close. That's a big key
For sure.
Eric Cross on Twitter at EricCross04, 5-Tool Pod, Fantrax, Tool Shed. I'm pretty sure that literally when we get off here, that's what you're going to. Why don't you pub what's going on? What do you got over at Fantrax? What's up on the pods? What's going down, my friend?
Yeah, I'm gonna go record 5-Tool right after this with Jake.
I'm holding them up. I'm the hold up here.
No, all good, man. Yeah, you hit it on the head. I got the 2 podcasts. 5-Tool comes out every Thursday, and Tool Shed every Monday. You got a couple articles weekly on Fantrax. Got my waiver wire piece on Friday. Then I mix in dynasty and prospect pieces earlier on in the week, and just doing a little bit of everything, man. Just staying busy. You know it. We all stay busy throughout the seasons. But what we love to do. So, and I always enjoy coming on here. You're one of my favorite people to podcast with. This overall, we always have a good time. So, thanks for having me on again, bud.
Hey, man, it's the first time. When's the last time we talked about prospects when we had actual quantitative stuff happening too? It's the first time in ages.
It's been a while, man.
Had stats. It's amazing.
Right.
So
feels good, huh?
Yeah, it does feel really good. All right, thank you very much, my friend, and we will be talking to you